Being introspective, starting early, getting over your fear of conflict. These are just three of the lessons that my guest Rick Chowdry has learned as he has built his company and put together a succession plan for passing the company on to the next generation. Rick is the president of Intech Mechanical, and he has over 30 years of experience in plumbing and pipe fitting. And this includes field experience in heavy commercial projects, hospitals, university labs, office buildings, all that kind of good stuff. He's built a company. He's going through the succession planning process in real time, real life right now. And he's going to tell us all about it today on Construction Genius. Enjoy my conversation with Rick. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Rick, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thank you, Eric.
I wanted to have you on the show because I know you're right in the middle of executing a succession plan, and kind of more towards the end as opposed towards the beginning. And so I'd like to just have you introduce yourself and introduce your company to our audience as we're kicking off this discussion.
Okay, well, my name is Rick Chowdry. I'm the president and managing member of Intech Mechanical Company, LLC. And I'm glad to be here. I appreciate it, Eric. Thanks.
That's awesome. Give us a little bit of history of Intech Mechanical.
All right. Well, without going into too much painful detail, started in 1995. Was really born. I was a project manager for another company, and it was kind of born by accident, actually, because prior to that, in 92, 3, 4, I was doing side work to try to just make ends meet. So I was doing plumbing, pipe fitting stuff out on the side to make the family budget work. I had little kids, so on and so forth. And as I did that, the size of the jobs got bigger, and it became more than just water heater change outs. So I decided, well, I better get licensed so I don't get in trouble. And then they got a little bigger, and I thought, oh no, now I need workers' comp, general liability. I need to have people help me. And essentially what happened was I got a side job that was big enough that the company that I was doing it for said, well, you can't do this after hours or Saturdays or whatever. And so I thought, well, oh no. And I had a decision to make. So I said, well, okay, I'll go ahead and do the job, and I'm going to have to quit my job. And so I went into my boss and I said, hey, I've got to quit because I've got this job I've got to do, and thank you. And I handed in my keys and my pagers and all of that stuff, because this was 1995.
Right.
And and I thought, well, how bad can this be? I mean, I might as well give it a whirl. So that's what happened. And I quit and did this job. It took me about 3 weeks to do, and it gave me enough money to stay alive for, 2 months or something while I got other things going. And Intech was born. That's how it started. And I just kept bidding work. And by December, that was May. So by December, I had maybe 6 employees, and we were doing stuff, and it's just grown from there. So now, fast forward, that's May of 95. Fast forward now, it's a big machine with a couple hundred people and full mechanical and service and controls and all this other stuff going on. So that's the rough history.
Back then, when you were doing side jobs, did the guy you were working for, did he know that you were doing side jobs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I wasn't. There was no hiding any of it. As a matter of fact, I even would buy material from him to do the side jobs. I would actually purchase pipe and fittings or rent. At times there were certain tools I didn't have. I would rent them from him, and yeah, for sure. There was no hiding it. That would have been unethical to do that.
Did you always want to start your own business, or did you just kind of slide into it because you saw that you could do it?
No, I didn't always want to start my own business. I wanted to be I think I wanted to be a pastor. And the starting my own business was probably the furthest thing from my mind. And so I just kind of fell into it, and it was sort of as I described it, it was kind of an accident, really. I mean, I didn't have any money. I really didn't have a business plan. When I had that one job, I thought, well, okay. The way I looked at it was, I thought, well, look, this will keep me alive for 2 months. The money I was going to make, right? And I thought, well, the worst thing that happens is I fail. I can always go back to work for somebody. I have some pretty decent capabilities. So if I fail, I'll call one of what would have been our competitors. Somebody will hire me because, I knew them. So I wasn't that worried about working.
That's cool. That's cool. So tell us a little bit about what do you think was the key to growing from, one guy doing side jobs, starting a business, to a company now that's 200 employees. And, you guys have been in business obviously for many years now. What's been the key to your success?
Honestly, I think the key for us, I mean, I've always had this priority of the ethics and how we treat people and doing what we say we're going to do. And I think that's been the key. I mean, our number one value is treat everyone the way we want to be treated. And I know that can sound cliche. A lot of people say that, but it's not a cliche here. We live by it. We drive it. We hold people accountable to it. It's always been the most important thing to me. And I think that priority, and then the other technical parts of the business, if you do those things, other things tend to take care of themselves. How about that?
Can you give me an example?
It sounds cliche because a lot of people say it, but we really, I think that's key.
So then, because that's something that, again, it's something we've all heard before. Can you give me a specific example of when you treated in a business context, when you treated someone the way that you wanted to be treated, and it actually cost you something? Like it was painful to do it, but you knew it was the right thing to do, and therefore you did it.
Yeah, sure. Well, I can think of an example recently, fairly recently, and I mean there've been a number of them. But we did a job, man, I don't know, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And it turned out that, you finish the job and then you have a 1-year warranty, right?
Right.
And this particular project, it was out of warranty probably 3 years or something, so it had been a while. And there started being some problems with some copper. Oh, look, the light went out. I think there we go. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
There were some problems with the copper and some solder joints. And what had happened was, this was a place where there was a transition to lead-free, this different kind of flux that we use when we solder.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some solder joint leaks that were starting to occur in the building when it was way out of warranty. And I could have taken all kinds of postures and said, well, it's the flux, it's the this, it's the whatever. And I told the owner, I said, look, if it was my building, solder joints should last 1,000,000 years, and they should last until the building falls down. And I said, we're going to fix it. And I said, we're going to fix every single one. Bottom line, you just need to call us if you see something, and I'll have somebody out there and we will take care of it. And we have. And it cost us, I don't know, probably 50 grand or better. Maybe more, right. Probably more than that. I'd have to look at the job cost, because categorized it separately. But
Yep.
in my view, if I purchase a building, I expect, because I own some property, I would expect somebody to stand behind it, and it not be an insurance claim and it not being a pain in the butt, but I would want my building to be okay. And that's how I looked at it. And so I took care of it, and we've taken care of it, and it's a done deal now. And I know the owner deeply appreciates that. And that's just one example. There's many, but that's a good one.
Yeah, the reason I asked you that is because we every company, we put our values together, but it's when those values actually are painful, or they cost us money, or they cost us something beyond just the regular way that we live or act, that they really it really demonstrates that they're actually real values to us, and not just talk that we put on our website or something like that.
Yeah, I've always said that integrity. Everybody has integrity until you have to write a check to maintain
There
it.
you go. There you
Right?
go.
That's
That's
the
a good
answer.
one.
It's like we all have integrity, because what happens when you have to write a check is usually we all start rationalizing, justifying, and looking at the contract and section, paragraphs 12.2.6, and there's my out, and I'm looking at that going, man, we all know what's right and wrong. And regardless of what a contract says, there's certain things that just are, and you just need to do that. And that's what I always try to do.
That's an interesting you say that. I'll tell you a story, because that really resonated with me. So yesterday, my 6 year, oh no, he's not 6 anymore, he's 8. He's been jumping on the messing with the garage, right? And so I didn't see it, but he somehow pulled it off of its
The tracks.
yeah, the track. So I called the garage door guy out, and he had just installed the garage last year, right? And I said, it came off its track. And so he looked at it and he said, "Oh yeah, this can happen in many different ways, And they came out super fast, and he fixed it, and so you could tell that I had a moment there, right, where it would have been easy for me not to say anything. And then he said, "Oh, I'm not going to charge you for this." And then I said to him, "But my kid hung on it, and so I think you should charge me." And he said, "Oh no, that's okay. I'm just going to ask you to give me a review on Google or something like that." So my point being is, like, I had that moment of decision right there, right, where if I was going to tell him that this is really my fault, because he had installed the garage, so it could have been like, "Oh, it fell off the track, and that was your fault." But it's interesting. Everyone has integrity until it costs you money.
That's the bottom line. We all have integrity. Bottom line, you have integrity till we don't. and that's
interesting.
And those moments happen at $100 decisions and $100,000 decisions, and even more.
Okay, so I'm going to do something, Rick. I never do this. I'm just going to do it real quick.
Okay.
If you're in the greater Sacramento area, the name of that company, by the way, is Pure Garage Door Services. The guy's name is Alex. And if you need a garage door or something fixed, you got to look him up, because he's really good. Anyway, sorry about that.
Good. As it should be. That's a good thing.
That's beautiful. Okay, now let's dive into this idea of succession. So you've built this company, and it's some people, they build these great companies, and then they're like, okay, I'm done, and off I go into the sunset. What in your thinking makes you want to have Intech go beyond just yourself and the work that you've done?
I think it boils down again to treat everyone the way you want to be treated. I mean, I think that's an okay exit strategy, depending on if the company's smaller and maybe folks are going to land on their feet, or something like that. But for me, it's a big machine now, and there's a couple hundred people, and I feel like I have a responsibility to those people. They trust me. They're here because of the culture. A lot of them would tell you that they're here because of the culture and what we are, and not about what we do. Because we have competitors that are just as capable as we are, and maybe some of them more. And I think that people are here because they value our culture and such. And so consequently, I have a responsibility to them. I feel a responsibility to them. And so succession, rather than just shutting it down and putting people out to the four winds, I feel like I need it to continue. And really the best thing is for it to continue, and not only do that, but be better than it was when I was running the show, which I still am. But and so that's why I didn't shut it down. It boils down to a responsibility to the people and trying to do things in everybody's best interest, and that's in everybody's best interest is that it continues and gets better.
Okay. So how did you start the process then?
Well, it's funny. When I started the business when I was 30, right? And people started talking to me about succession pretty shortly after that. And of course, when you're 35, you go, man, dude, get out of my face because I've got stuff I got to do, and that's 100 years from now. And it kind of crept up on me, honestly. Let's see. Let me think about when this was. It was probably 2014 ish. My accounting firm, BFBA, Craig Boyce, who's a friend of mine, climbing partner, and all of that. He said, "Hey, Rick, we now have this model that we're trying to transition construction companies into. It's an LLC model. We were an S corp prior to that. Actually, we'd been a C corp, then we were an S, and then became an LLC." And Craig described this whole LLC model to me, put the flow chart in front of me and all of that stuff. And that was really where succession started to get its traction, because the LLC model that they put us in, that we became, lends itself to succession. It's a lot easier. It's a lot simpler. It has less tax consequences and a lot of different things like that. You have a lot more flexibility to bring people into a position of leadership. And we don't have to get into the mechanics of it, but that's where I started getting traction. Is where it became a thing. And so when we became an LLC, I was able to bring Gary Myers, who's one of the vice presidents, to bring him into membership of the LLC within a percentage of profits interest that I had promised him when he came here. And then from there, you have this basic infrastructure in place that lends itself to this. Then it just becomes a process of identifying the humans that are going to sit in the seats, because from a tax and another standpoint, the LLC lends itself to succession really, really well. And at least in my experience, it's been really, really good.
Okay,
we've already started it and it's working.
So just for the audience, episode 125, I actually have Craig Boyce and Noli on the podcast, and that's the name of that one is how to structure exit strategy experts, how to structure a company for the next generation. And so if you want to check that out for more details about the LLC model, feel free to do that. But let me just go back. So you started with structure before you went to people, is that right? The structure of the deal, so to speak?
I would say so. And to the extent that I started with people, prior to that, Gary Myers came here from a competitor, and he was a big gun guy. And so I had to make some promises to him that I made. And I said, look, if you'll come here, I will make you X percentage, have an X percentage interest in this company when we're able to pull that off.
Right.
And so that happened first. And then the LLC model came into being, right behind that. And, and it gave me the vehicle with which to do it. So I guess there was at least one person that was identified ahead of the model, but he wasn't going to be the end all be all, because there were a lot of other things that needed to happen in succession. And at the time, I was not thinking about succession. I was more thinking, this guy has some confidence that we don't right now, and so he's filling an empty seat on the bus. It's probably really what I was thinking, and not.
Hey, this is Eric. Quick mid-episode break. Hope you're enjoying my discussion with Rick. And Rick and his company are actually clients of mine. I've helped them with their succession planning using the framework that I use with all of my clients when it comes to succession planning. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to a testimonial letter that Rick has been generous enough to give me about the work that we've done together. So click on that link, learn more about the succession planning process I use with my clients. And if you are the president or owner of your construction company and you'd like to discuss with me how I might be able to help you with your succession plan, feel free to go to my website, constructiongenius.com/contact. Put in your details there, and I'll contact you. We can book in a short 10-minute call to figure out if or how I can help you. Let's go back to the discussion with Rick. So then, as you're going through this process, and you've got the model in place, or you've selected your model, the LLC model, as you're describing. How did you then begin to think about the people who would fill the seats in the next generation of ownership and leadership in the company?
Well, what you start doing is when that's in place, you start looking at the people that are coming through and the different positions you're hiring, and you start looking for the intangibles of what it takes to be a part of the leadership of a company. In other words, you look beyond the competence. When you're trying to hire, let's just say a project manager. Let's use that as an example.
Yeah,
you're looking at beyond their project management skills, and you're thinking, okay, how's this person put together? What's their character like? What are they one of those people? It kind of changes your paradigm, if that makes sense. And you start looking deeper than just, we always tried to hire character. And we've hired people based on character and not hired people based on lack of character, at least in our estimation. So, but it makes you focus differently, I think. And I have people who are theoretically down the chain a little ways, in other words, in their position and in the company. But I look at them and I go, that person has the magic, right? They have the leadership, they have the people skills, that they have some of those things, and they're so you're always aware and on the lookout for it.
So let's talk more about that then. In your mind, give us a little more specificity on some of those intangibles that you described, or that magic.
Oh, okay. Well, the magic in my mind is really, well, first of all, the number one thing, if you're going to be in leadership in this company, is you're going to maintain the culture and the personality that's here, and so you need to be a part of, and you need to buy into that. So you yourself need to buy into the treat everyone the way you want to be treated culture, and then I think the other thing that I really look at is how they value people, how they really value people, not what they say, but what they actually do. And I would differentiate that between valuing people and saying you value people, but really your interactions with folks are transactional. If that's a good term that I use. Some people are transactional. In other words, people are a commodity. You do a transaction. It's like, dude, give me this, bam. And of course, that's part of day-to-day life. But there's a difference in getting work done and truly valuing people. And I really look for that because I value them, and I want whoever's leading this machine when I'm gone, I want them to value people, but I also want them to value excellent work. It's not that we're just a doughy, fun. This is not an amusement park over here. We also, with that value, expect you to value us and to conduct yourself accordingly, and to, be the best of the best, right? So that it's both.
So how do you balance that though? Because it's I think a lot of companies struggle with this because they do want to value people, but then that this is a business after all. So if they're not performing up to a certain level, then I can't keep giving you money. you know what I mean?
Right. No, exactly.
So how do you strike that balance?
Well, I think we use the same values. What I try to do is use the same values that I have and just apply them in reverse. Meaning, I'm going to treat you the way I want to be treated. I expect you to do the same. And part of that is work like it's your money and bust your butt to do what's right and do what's best, and you know treat it like it's yours. Treat me the way you would want to be treated. If I worked for you, you would expect me to do everything in my power to do my job to the best of my ability, to guard the company's assets, to make sure profitability is what it should be, that the work product is what it should be, and all those things, right? So I guess I just apply the treat everyone the way you want to be treated in reverse. And if you don't do it, then frankly, I don't have a lot of pay. It's like, you can, go work for somebody else, man. We'll move on. I mean, we're not, I don't want to represent it like it's this amusement park of, Rick's Good Time Fun Place. I mean, it is that, but you have to perform to be a part of that. If you're not performing, then we used to, when way back in the day, we used to tolerate things a lot longer, and we were a little more, we weren't as fast at taking care of problems with personnel as we are now. We're a lot quicker at it. We've learned.
Let me ask you about that, Rick, because I think that's one of the issues that a lot of construction company owners have, is that they're not fast enough in dealing with their people problems.
Right.
What incident or what insight did you get that has helped you to speed up over the years so that you're not tolerating that poor performance for an extended period of time?
Let's see. Well, okay. So really in my nature, and when I was younger especially, I was probably people pleasing and conflict avoidant. And after being punched in the mouth financially a bunch of times, I'm just not. And I think what makes people slow is either laziness or conflict avoidance.
Yeah.
And conflict avoidance is a real problem for, well, I mean, humans. If you're a decent person, you don't want to have conflict. None of us do. But healthy conflict creates character, and it elevates your game and other people's game. And so I think that getting past the idea of conflict avoidance and just going, look, man, we just need to hit this head on. Let's not, because what you end up, here's what you do. You have a person who's performing in a certain substandard way, and you end up, and I've done this 100 times, you rationalize, you make excuses, you do anything you can to keep from dealing with the problem. And because they're doing 75% of their job well, and this 25% is a train wreck, you try to make a value judgment. It's like, well, okay, what if I get rid of this person, then the next person's 50% a train wreck? And you do all of this mind stuff. And at the end of the day, I've gotten to where I think I make those value judgments a lot faster. I make other people make them faster. I have a reputation here of saying things pretty direct. I mean, not to my people in leadership. I talk very, in a very kind of blunt, in a respectful way, but in a very, I don't sugarcoat what our problems are, and I expect them to do the same. So I think we're a lot better at it. I don't let me represent it like we're perfect. We still screw it up. Don't do it fast enough, or what? I mean, we aren't perfect, but we're a lot better than we used to be.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Is that idea of progress, and specifically that idea of getting over the conflict avoidance, because that is something that, and that rationalization that you described, that's something that I think that a lot of construction company owners wrestle with. So I appreciate you diving into that, Rick.
Yeah, for sure.
So what has been your biggest challenge? As you've got the structure in place, you've got at least one person identified who you'd like to have in that next generation of leaders. What has been your biggest challenge with the succession process over the last few years?
The biggest challenge has really been just identifying the people. I mean, at the end of the day, I have this joke about construction being third grade math, third grade English, and a PhD in psychology. And and I think that it's just really finding the right people. You end up with competence and not the right character or the right leadership skills or the reverse. And it's finding that unicorn that, or those few unicorns that have the whole, have the whole package, and really value the culture. That's really the kicker. That's hard to find. So it's the singular challenge is identifying the people, because I think, when you do succession, if you hand the keys to somebody and you walk away and think you're going to go, drink an umbrella drink in the
Right.
in the Bahamas, you're going to come back to a train wreck if they don't, if the business doesn't continue and maintain its profitability and be successful. You're going to either not get paid, or you're going to have a train wreck, and you're going to have to come back and fix it. And so it's so important. I can't overstate how important people are and what happens on a go forward basis.
So let me ask you this: as you've obviously you've been obviously a catalyst for your business, and one of the big challenges that someone in your position has when it comes to succession is they like the idea of it in theory, but then when it comes to, number one, selecting the right people and then beginning to release control to them and giving them the authority that they need to learn the lessons that they need in order to be a successful owner of a construction company, that's where they struggle. What has been your biggest struggle with that idea of control and authority as it relates to developing them into future owners of your company?
I think it's really just, it boils down to trust and deciding that you've identified a person and that you're going to trust them with this, with this very important task. And it boils down to trust. And I think you can be foolish, being trusting is a good thing, but you can also be foolish with it. And it's coming to that place where you go, okay, this is that person. I'm going to trust them. I've identified, I've vetted them. So now let me invest. And then in addition to that, I think investing in them on a regular, I mean, you have to have almost a culture of training and investing where you're spending time with them, you're going over financials, you're doing all this day-to-day stuff where it's like, well, what, this is what I would do in this situation, or they just see how you carry yourself and how you deal with conflict and how you deal with personnel issues and all of that. And it's trust and investing, I guess, if I was boiling it down to a couple of words.
That's good. So let's talk a little bit more about trust. What do you think are some of the keys for establishing trust in a relationship as it relates to your business?
Well, the key is getting past the what would I call it? The honeymoon phase of someone working here. I think people that get hired, it's like a marriage, right? You first get married and it's like, oh, woohoo, this is, the greatest thing. And, you get 6 months, a year or whatever into it. And it just it's just like life. Everything gets real, and it's not, whatever. The reality's set in. It's the grocery shopping and you squeeze the toothpaste from the middle and you don't fold the towels right and all of that stuff, right? And that's true. I think that's true in in a hiring process. You hire somebody and you go, oh, this is the second coming of Jesus. And then, 6 months in, you go, oh, what was that? Well, what was that, right? And so I think I think it boils down to understanding the reality of the person and really having gone through those, because the more conflict and the more resolution to conflict and the more you see the things that aren't right, and they see the things that aren't right about you, and you work through those things together, that builds the trust. And when there's a certain time, there's a certain amount of time that just has to pass. I mean, I think somebody has to be here at least a year, maybe more, for you to really see what they're all about. Mm-hmm. Mike Friesen, one of the VPs here, who's actually on his way, kind of working his way towards retiring out of here. has always said, it's 18 months, man. I don't even want to talk to you until 18 months are up, and then maybe we're all right.
That's
And I
interesting.
think there's a certain amount of passage of time that just has to happen.
Okay, so it's the passage of time, and in that passage of time, you get to know someone. But again, it's one thing tolerating someone's weaknesses when it comes to being an employee. It seems like it's another thing tolerating those weaknesses when it comes to being an owner, particularly when it's going to like hit you, Rick, in your pocketbook if this person screws up. Not to mention your reputation and your legacy.
Right.
So, are there extra layers of trust that need to be built there before you're willing to invest in the person in terms of ownership in the business?
Yeah, I think it comes down to their character and what I would say about their weaknesses, because we all have them, I have them too, is their ability to deal with, how do they deal with their weaknesses? What do they, first of all, do they make excuses, or are they straight about it? Do they understand it? Are they honest? Do they know? And then secondly, what steps do they take to backfill the weaknesses? And what you ultimately have to do, either, and it really should be active, like top of mind, is, okay, I don't do this well. So that's an understanding of your own stuff, right? I don't do this well, but I do this well. So I need people that do this and this and this to to create, to basically plug the holes. And I really look at I look at someone's ability to understand who and what they really are, and to be realistic about what they do and don't do well, and the humility to say, hey, I need help in this situation. That, for me, that's what really is that's where I really trust somebody, when they go, hey man, this, I don't know what to do here. That's where I start really trusting people, because I know
that's interesting. So if you had to start the process of your succession plan, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
I'm not sure I would do much differently, Eric, but I think I would start soon. I don't think it's ever too early. And I think what I would do is I would start sooner. I would have started almost at the beginning if I'd have really understood it. Understanding I was 30 years old, so but I would started it much sooner, and I would have built a sort of in the fabric of the company, would have had that succession idea, and the idea of everybody coming in having the opportunity to elevate depending on what their propensities are. I would have done that very early, because I think when that's in the fabric and in the culture of the machine, I think it draws better and more qualified people. And so that would be the thing I would have done differently, is put it in the fabric, start early.
Interesting. Okay. With that in mind, then, how much longer do you think you have in the business before you're able then to exit, all things being equal?
I'm hoping 3 years. That's not a hard number, but 3 years is what I'm hoping to be able to start pulling myself out and taking more of a kind of a consulting / oversight role type of thing, and do other things as well.
So between then and now, it's because 3 years, that's a relatively short time in business. What are you going to be focused on to make sure that is a reality, that actually happens?
Well, what I'm focused on is what the structure is now, what the structure would look like if I wasn't here. I mean, you have to, like, physically on paper, put those two things next to each other, and then look at look at all the empty boxes over here in the structure. That, if I'm gone, what empty boxes does that create? And then starting to identify the people that would fill those boxes, either from within or without. Mm-hmm. Start. You essentially have to build the structure the way it needs to look for you to be gone, and do it very, very carefully. Because, boy, you can sure get hurt if you get the wrong people in the wrong seats in the bus.
So what are the key seats from the top of the organization? What are those key seats that you're looking to fill?
The key seats would really be mostly in project management. That's like a senior. We need senior project management type people and really good project managers and field superintendents, because that's really where the money gets made. That's where, because our biggest risk is labor, and the control of the labor, it falls fundamentally on project management and the field superintendents. So those are kind of where the seats are that need backfilling, so that the people that are doing it now, who are going to elevate into a position of overall company leadership, because they occupy those seats now. So essentially they move up here, and then you got a vacuum, so you got to fill it in, if that makes sense.
And yeah, so at the executive level, then what are those? Because I'm thinking, in construction, we've got to get the work, we've got to build the work, and then we've got to get paid. Are you thinking of ownership in all of those areas, or do you have people who are going to take on more than one of those areas? What's your perspective on that?
Oh, I think that from the leadership and the profits interest going forward, in the LLC, ideally I would like to have each of those, the get the work, do the work, count the work people. I'd like to have someone from each of those boxes be a part of the ownership of the company. I think that's ideal, because it covers all the three pieces, and provides a lot of motivation, provides perspective. There's a lot of advantages to it. I think if you don't do it that way,
I would imagine that also brings in different types of personalities that can kind of enrich the leadership group of the second generation.
100%. I mean, accountants are different than project managers.
Yeah.
And estimators are different from them. So, and they fundamentally are. They just are different. And it takes the whole group to make wise decisions, and to maintain direction, because inevitably, if you have 3 or 4 people who are leading, somebody's going to see things you're not going to see. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, I have blind spots, and I can't tell you how many times my leadership group has gone, "Hey, this," and I go, "What? I thought that was okay." So yeah, I think it's really important.
That's excellent. So just as we're wrapping up here, Rick, if you were sitting across the table from another construction company owner, and they were asking you, Rick, give me 3 pieces of advice for succession planning, what would those 3 pieces of advice be?
I think the first piece would be introspective, measure yourself, and understand what you are and what you are not. Because I don't think you can do succession planning without knowing where you're starting from, and especially about yourself. A lot of people don't really think about what their strengths and weaknesses are and understand how to backfill those things. I think that starting early and building it into the fabric is another thing.
Yep.
And get over your fear of conflict, and be ready to do healthy, respectful conflict resolution.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
Great stuff there. Thank you. So, Rick, I know you're a published author, and so I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about your book, because it comes from from someone who actually owns a construction company. So tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I guess you told me ahead of time that I could swear. So the book's on Amazon. It dropped a couple months ago. It's called "I Shit My Pants Again, and So Did You." And then the subtitle is "A Plumber's Guide to World-Saving Humility." And the essence of the book is this. Well, you can kind of tell by the title, but it is kind of a funny, satirical look at the commonality of human beings and all the things that we share, all the struggles that we have, and then the essence of that is, should you really be prideful, or maybe you shouldn't, and maybe I shouldn't, because we all, as the title says, I shit my pants again, and so did you. I mean, it's like Dolby and Bozos on the same bus. So it's short. It's an easy read. It's like 50 pages, and it was fun to write. I mean, I don't apologize for anything that's in it. Even now, some people will probably be offended by some of it, and I don't apologize. I mean, I stand by everything I said.
That's awesome. So we're going to have a link in the show notes to that book. And so feel free to check that out. And just as we're leaving here, Rick, just give us a little bit more about your company, where you're located, all that kind of stuff, if people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, sure. We're in Roseville, California. And our website, intech-mech.com. And we're one of the larger mechanical contractors in town. We do HVAC, plumbing, piping, process piping. We have a pretty good sized service department, and we do our own in-house controls. And glad to talk to anybody that wants to talk to us about opportunities, for sure.
Excellent. So we'll put links in the show notes there. And Rick, I really appreciate you coming in and chatting with us here today.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I really enjoyed it. Good to see you.
Thank you for listening to my interview today with Rick Chowdry. Feel free to go to Amazon. And when you're at Amazon, pick up his book, I Shit My Pants Again, and So Did You. That's a beautiful title. I'm a little jealous of his title. It's so punchy. Mine is Construction Genius, effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So while you're on Amazon getting Rick's book, you can pick up a copy of mine. And what people are doing is really interesting with the Construction Genius book is they're buying copies for themselves and their whole leadership team. And then what they're doing is they're reading a chapter or a couple of chapters at a time, meeting on a monthly basis, and then discussing the chapters. How are we going to use and apply the learning in our organization to make us better leaders? That's how you get the most out of investing in any book, and particularly this book, Construction Genius. So check out that book, check out Rick's book. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius today, and I'll catch you on the next episode.